Guided Reading Lesson 11. Wonderstruck. I am reading this book to my Year 5 class with permission from Scholastic. So, last lesson, we left Rose standing outside of the Natural History Museum. Why do you think that she is there? Who do you think that she is hoping to find? I just want you to think about those two questions before we begin. And how, as a child, do you think she's feeling when she is in such a busy place like New York? Ben studied the museum in awe. The steps, the giant green statue of a man on horseback, the columns and windows, it was magnificent. If only his mum were here with him, walking beside him, her arm on his shoulder. Did she know his dad had moved, or would she have been surprised as well? Even if they hadn't been able to find Ben's dad, he and his mum could have gone into the museum together. Ben prayed that someone in the bookstore would remember his father. By the time he arrived to the address on the bookmark, his t-shirt was completely soaked through with sweat. Cigarette butts and bits of newspaper gathered in dirty piles on the ground in front of the store. He looked up at the storefront window. There was no black cat or boxes of books. There was no bookstore at all, just a padlock running through a metal crate that was pulled down over a broken glass window. Plywood sheets were nailed up in pieces behind the grate. Remnants of a sign that read King Broke hung at an angle from a single nail. Ben pressed his eyes against a hole in the plywood and felt his stomach turn. Except for a few rows of fallen shelves, some pipes leaning at odd angles, and a couple of overturned cardboard boxes, the store was empty. Now what would he do? As he stared in disbelief, a boy about his age appeared from nowhere, startling him. The boy had long, curly black hair and wore a striped t-shirt. He had a Polaroid camera around his neck and a knapsack on his back. He was moving his lips and pointing down the block. What did he want? A man standing nearby waved impatiently to the boy. Ben's head roared. He gathered up his things and ran. The heat was unbearable and his skin burned in the sun. But he kept going until he was back at the museum. He bounded up the stone steps, past the statue. At the top, he tripped, and the clasp on his suitcase finally gave way. Everything he owned tumbled out onto the stairs. Ben bit down on his lip to keep him from crying. As he bent over to pick up his things, a shadow fell across him. He glanced upwards and saw the curly-haired boy in the striped t-shirt looking down at him, his mouth moving. The boy handed Ben Wonderstruck, which he must have picked up off the stairs. Ben took the book, placed it in the suitcase and snapped it shut. Then he rushed past the boy and pushed it through the revolving doors. The air inside the museum was cool. Light filtered in from above. It reminded Ben of the church down the road from his mum's library. The walls were covered with warmly coloured murals, teeming with people and animals and plants. They were long quotations from Theodore Roosevelt, painted on the wall as well. It's hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed. Ben wasn't sure he agreed, but he thought his mum would have liked that. She would have put it on the refrigerator. Ben had no money for admission, so he waited for someone to ask the guard a question. Then he snuck swiftly under the ropes, found a bathroom and took a long drink from the faucet. He washed his arm and face. The cold water felt good against his skin. He looked at himself in the mirror, and for a second it was like staring at a stranger. With the water and dirt dripping down his exhausted face, he really did look like an alien. As he dried himself off, he noticed a discarded map of the museum next to the sink. He unfolded it and read the names of the halls: meteorites, gems and minerals, man in Africa, northwest coast Indians, biology of birds, small mammals, earth history. Like his mum's library, the entire universe was here, organised and waiting. Outside the bathroom was a small cafe. On one of the tables, someone had left a tray with the remains of a sandwich and half a carton of milk. Ben made sure no one was looking. Then he inhaled the sandwich and drank the milk. He hadn't realised how hungry he'd been. He followed signs to the elevator and rode to the top floor with the map in his hands. He easily found the dinosaur skeletons. which rose above him like ancient roller coasters. He wandered beneath flocks of birds hanging from the ceiling, past Komodo dragons with forked tongues sticking out at him, and 2 giant unmoving tortoises protecting their eggs. "Look, Mum, turtles," he said to himself. Continuing onward like a boy in a lost castle, Ben walked through gigantic hallways and down marble staircases. He discovered a herd of elephants standing on a raised platform as if they were posing for a photograph in the Hall of Ocean Life. A whale hovered in mid-air like a blue zeppelin. Sharks mounted to the walls looked ready to eat him, their deadly white mouths wide open. All through the museum, Ben marvelled at the life-size dioramas cut like windows into the dark walls. The dioramas looked out into endless vistas, blazing sunsets, snow-capped mountains, and high fields of grass. Each one was filled with animals that seemed to be frozen in time. They turned their heads or sat waiting on rocks or walked towards a stream and then paused, mid-breath, forever. Again, what are the similarities at the moment between Ben and Rose's stories? Where is Rose and where is Ben? How do you think Rose is feeling at this moment? She's still holding her postcard. Ben soon stepped into a dark round space that seemed as if it had been built around the main object in the middle of a room. There, beneath the glow of a spotlight, was a gigantic black meteorite about the size of a car. Ben ran his hand along the shiny, undulating surface. It was smooth to the touch. He read the nearby sign and thought about the meteorite his mum had described to him, the one that created Gumplint Lake 2 billion years ago. Had it been bigger than this one? And if a meteorite was the same as a shooting star, could you still make a wish even after it had fallen to Earth? What do you think Rose might be writing there?